There we go. All right. So the thought that I have for us tonight is definitely centered around preparing for the exams, or preparing specifically for this moment. But it's not just limited to this moment. I think the principle that we're going to talk about is definitely applicable to the workplace one day, and really a lot of other situations as well. But I think this is going to be helpful. And we will talk a little bit about some practicals, but ultimately you're going to be the ones that's going to give that. So let me set the scene here. I want you to imagine for a moment that you get invited to Thomas's house. Now, quick show of hands, who's been to Thomas's house? I try to pick a house where many of us have been to, just because there's been big campus events. And okay, so most of us have been there. I think pretty much almost all of us. So I want you to imagine that, that you are part of the group going to Thomas's house, and there's a certain individual that's with you, also, and that got the invitation. And as you're entering the house, it's kind of one of those rainy days, but it stopped raining, but there's kind of mud running up to the front door. So, you're kind of stepping in that as you enter the house. And this individual that's with you decide, man, they're not going to wipe their feet. They'll just, they'll just kind of enter Thomas's house with those muddy feet. So it's literally as you're walking, the entranceway, as you're walking, there's kind of little footmarks all over the place. And Thomas's mom, she is she's very friendly. She comes up, she says, how's it? And, you give her kind of a warm greeting, but that individual that's with you just sort of snubs her, like, hey, and it's sort of, okay. And then you guys proceed to make your way to the kitchen. And that as you make your way to the kitchen, there's this amazing grand piano, piano standing there, as you get close. And this individual also just finished the pack of knickknacks, decides they have never seen a piano before and have always wanted to play on one. So they proceed just to lift the thing open and just start jamming along, but like hard. And you see the yellow knickknack fingerprints on this thing all over. They decide, well, we're done with that. So get up. And this person proceeds to go into the kitchen, literally walks over to the fridge, opens the fridge to see what is there for them to drink. Take out something, juice, whatever, have some juice. And then they decide, well, okay, that's kind of enough for the kitchen. Let me go find the TV. They walk over to the TV. As they arrive there, they put those feet on the table in front of them, and finds the remote and switches it on. Okay. So I want you to imagine that for a moment. Let me ask you, maybe I should ask Thomas, how do you feel about somebody doing something like that? What would be running through your mind? Are you so part of the group that sees this, or that also got invited? Oops, a daisy. Oh my goodness. So Madness does that all the time. Oh man. There's the door. Okay. Yeah.
I think for someone who's accompanying the person in, I'd feel a lot of like embarrassment and shame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know you. Goodbye. That kind of feeling.
Yes. All right. Yeah. Here I would feel, let me just put on the chat here. I'd feel awkward. I'd be like, let's go. Okay, definitely. All right,
I think.
Yeah, Isha?
Oh, cool. I was just saying that I'd think in my head, I hope this person helps me tidy up afterwards.
Okay. So you're already thinking about tidying up. I mean, you've not done anything, but you just want to like, yeah, definitely. Now, what's wrong with this? Let me ask you that. Okay,
from personal experiences, I think it's fine. I think it should be done again, but that's just my opinion.
That's just yours. Okay, all right, awesome. Clearly, Madness stays there. Yeah, what would you say? Like, what's wrong with that?
I second Madness.
My opinion's gaining steam here. Abby?
Yeah, I think the boys need to go pray about something because something's up here.
Yeah.
But I think generally it's just disrespectful and inconsiderate. Like it's just rude. It's all the bad words. If your mom told you like don't be like this, that's what that is.
Yes. All right. Spot on. Yeah. SJ, did you want to add something? Nice. All right. Fence is saying I'm taking advantage of someone else's kindness. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys have it right. Intuitively, most of us come out of a house where if somebody enters your house that way, or you are with somebody entering a house that way, it's just all kinds of wrong. It like registers as disrespect. It registers as, and I'm going to throw this word out there, like not honorable. Like honorable is like appropriate behavior in a certain setting, and somehow this is not right, because it's a privilege to be invited. I mean, especially if you've been to Thomas's house and you're there, like there's a certain honor and a privilege and prestige about that invitation. And with that comes a certain expectation that you have to respect and behave in an appropriate way that's befitting that scenario. All right. Now, I say that because the group that I'm looking at here tonight, I believe are some of the most privileged individuals in South Africa. And I would say that you guys have two of the greatest invitations, okay, that has come your way, and you have both of them. The first one is being at university. Okay, I don't know if you know this, but that in a certain sense is an incredible privilege, like an amazing honor to be there. And, if we start talking about Wits here, Wits, I had to look it up myself because I couldn't believe it as an old Ike. But in 2020, it was actually ranked as the top university in Africa. Okay, so it kind of clipped UCT. UCT was the top the previous year, but Wits from last year holds top university in Africa. In the global rankings, it obviously ranks the highest of all the African universities, and it sits about number 200, all right, out of 25,000 universities in the world. Okay, so we're talking about in the like the 1 percentile of top universities worldwide. Okay. To give you an idea, who wants to share a guess about how many first years apply to go to Wits?
65,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know
65,000.
just for the humanities students, I think it's like 45,000, isn't it? Well, that's what it was when I entered. So I guess that's double considering other faculties at least.
Yeah, it's like 65, 50, between 50,000 to like 65,000 people that apply.
All right.
I was gonna go high and say 80,000.
80. All right. Now, last year, I'll just give you last year's stats. I think the year before was higher. Okay. I think the year before might have been over 100,000. Last year alone, applications to get into Wits for first years was 68,752. Do you know how many first year spots there are to fill? 4,900. Okay. So out of 68,000 applications, we're looking at about 4,900 spots that you can get. Medicine, you're looking at about 14,000 applications for 220 spots. Okay. Now I say that, and we're going to get to E.D.G.E now, to say that to get in there, there's a confluence of factors that needs to go right for you to have that privileged position of entering that establishment. All right. And it's not just all down to your hard work. All right. That's a component of it, but there's actually so much more that goes into that. Okay. E.D.G.E. In 2020, E.D.G.E for the very first time broke into the top 500 globally as a university. It actually sits currently at number 439. It is the university that has climbed the most in rankings over the last couple of years. All right. At the moment, they ranked third in South Africa and fourth in Africa. Okay, so this is, I mean, part of kind of the global rankings. And again, I couldn't get official stats of how many first years apply, but I would say that it's very, very similar. All right, with that. Obviously, we can go down the list. You think about varsity college. You think about the tuition that's involved with varsity college. It's a private higher learning institution, you know, and it's kind of close to 30 years in operation. It's opened eight campuses, like world-class campuses, you know. So I say that because one of the invitations that you guys have is incredible. It's a great honor. All right. So I'm talking to a great privileged group, and Chanel and Zane, I'm so sorry. I didn't look at the University of Pretoria, not for any specific reason, but just as an illustration point. But on top of that, okay, I believe that there's a calling or an invitation that you've received that's even far greater than getting into university. Okay, and I might be slightly biased, but I think you would agree that I think the call to be a disciple of Jesus probably clips getting into university by a large margin. I mean, getting an invitation to Thomas's house is pretty cool. Okay. But that's an amazing honor. But what you've been invited to is actually into the household of God himself. Right? And not as a visitor. Actual fact, you've been invited as a son or as a daughter. You are so in, okay, like Marnus. I think Marnus was onto something there. You are so in and so dearly loved that you have the right to walk to the fridge and open it and take whatever you want, because you're in. You're part of the family. Like, you could put your feet on the table because you're a son and you're a daughter. Like, you're not a foreigner, you're not a stranger, you're not a visitor. That's what you've been invited to. And literally, you know, the presence of God that created the whole universe lives there. The God that made everything you can see, touch, taste, experience, even the things that you cannot see, he made. And he's the one that calls himself your Father. Okay. So you combine these two privileges, these two invitations and these two callings, then the question begs, when exams roll around, how are we to conduct ourselves as these privileged individuals? Okay, have a look in Philippians chapter 1. Here comes our one-liner for tonight. All right, Philippians chapter 1. If you'd like to read for us just verse 27, it's going to be over very quickly.
I can read.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Okay, Philippians 1 verse 27. Yes, okay.
Yep.
Whatever happens, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then, whether I come and see you or only hear.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So 27 verse A.
Great.
Just one sentence. All right, so it's very simple. It actually says there, whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Okay, that has like this honor, you know, language attached to it, this privileged language attached to it. Okay, Ephesians chapter 4 verse 1, and this sentence actually comes up in a ton of places, but I had to restrain myself from giving you every possible verse. You can look it up yourself, but if you put Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1, and this Philippians 1:27. Philippians 4:1 just says, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the calling that you've received. Calling, invitation that you've received, which is obviously to be a disciple of Jesus, to be a follower of Jesus, an imitator, somebody that's part of the family of God, the household of God. So whatever happens, conduct yourself in a manner that's worthy of that invitation. Now, let me ask you, what is, and this is Paul's writing while he's sitting in prison, in case you're wondering. So he's not in a pretty spot at the moment as he writes this, but what has happened in your life in the last little while or in the world that has somehow made it challenging to be an excellent student? Okay, that's not a rhetorical question. And yeah, so maybe start with you. Maybe there's been a certain incident or a certain, I don't know, occurrence or something that's happened outside of you or in your world that's made it challenging to be an excellent student. Yeah, S.J.?
Cool. About a month and a half ago, I think, my dad was diagnosed with a heart condition, so that was just quite challenging. And then last week, Tuesday, was also in a car accident. So I think just extra roles around the house alongside load shedding.
Yes.
But amen, you make it work.
Okay. I'm so sorry to hear. Your dad was in the car accident, right? Okay. All right. I see Hope. Hope mentioned online learning. Okay, absolutely. I think all of us can nod with that. Like that's been a major one. Yeah. Okay, what else? Brian?
It's way too cold to study at the moment. Like I just want to keep myself covered. Like I'm not even with Jason and Niku currently because they're in a cold room. Like, I can't handle this.
I just wanted to say, says the man that's wearing a t-shirt. I don't know how that works, man.
No, I've got a proper heating here. It's
okay. All right. Yeah. Cool. Abby?
Yeah, I think mine is very weird. I'm doing a master's, and the master's doesn't have any structure. I have 2 deadlines in 2 years. The one is in July and the other one is literally anytime after July.
Yeah.
But that's been hard because I have nothing to like motivate myself. I have no in between, okay, have this by this date. This is a test. This is an exam. It's just like, hey, read and write a bunch of stuff and see what happens. And so that's made it very difficult because I thrive when there's structure, and now there's no structure and I'm maybe falling apart, but yeah, that's me.
Okay. All right. So kind of that switch from undergrad and honors being structured to all of a sudden just like a very unstructured, self-motivated type of thing. Okay. Zander?
Yeah, so my university is quite fun. Everything is module based. So for like 8 weeks, we'll focus just on one module and then we'll write an exam, and then 8 weeks will pass and then I'll write the next exam. So I could get to focus on just this one thing. But I only have class, for this module from Monday till Thursday. So my Monday to Thursday, I work really, really hard. But Friday, because of my, how can I say this? My relaxedness and my tendency to be lazy, everything just falls off the rails when it comes to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
All right.
So I think, that's something that definitely holds me back from being a disciplined student throughout the whole week, because I don't have classes on that day. And I also feel like because I have so much time, I have like 7 more weeks to focus on this subject that we're focusing on this week. I don't have like an urge to catch up. It's not like I'm going to fall that far behind. Like I can literally sit in a day and catch up a week's work. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's kind of nice in one sense, but also challenging in another. All that freedom. Okay. Kia?
So for me, what's been challenging the most is practicals.
Okay.
And having to get to the practicals and having to figure out what am I going to do with with the kids, what am I going to do? Because I got very complex cases this semester, and it was like I was thrown into the deep end, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to figure it out? So that has been like super challenging for me. Like today was the last session with the specific group that was the most challenging. Well, I can't mention what they have. They have autism. They both have autism. The one is high functioning and the other one is nonverbal. And so that's extremely challenging, and also just not having while studying and doing schoolwork, and not having like support, actual like physical support at home, because no one really gets what I'm studying. No one is in the same life phase as I am at home, and I'm far away from everyone else, and I only see my friends on days of prac, and after the prac we just go home. So yeah, that's been super challenging for me, but other than that.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing, Kia. All right, Kelena. I assume that's Karen and Elena, unless I'm going to be surprised.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not Kelena. I'm joking. It is Elena.
You almost pulled it off. I was like, wait a minute.
New identity. No, so I think this year has been very challenging in terms of academics, just because I've had a multitude of different health problems. I've been to the hospital 4 times this year. I've had 2 separate surgeries. I've been diagnosed with a bunch of different like things. And so I think it's very hard to like keep up with the deadline while recovering from all these things. And COVID, like this past week, has been horrendous. But yeah, so I think it's just been difficult to continue to feel motivated when you feel really ill. So anyways.
No, awesome. No, thank you. Appreciate the vulnerability. And it is, I mean, how we doing physically certainly affects like how we're doing emotionally, and just kind of our motivation levels. Those are some tough scenarios, I think, that you guys have shared. And it's definitely been an upside down kind of 14 months. I don't think I've once sort of wished that I've been a university student during this patch. I'm actually very grateful that I graduated a couple of years ago. And just because it's unique challenges, like you guys are living through incredibly unprecedented times. And, and I'm sure that there's kind of a sense of, pressure that you feel, and, all of those different things to figure this out. But if you come back to our one-liner, and this is what makes it so challenging, because I have a lot of compassion, I think, for what you have shared and what you've mentioned. But considering that the man that writes this sentence is sitting somewhere in prison, the future is uncertain. And I'm not exactly sure what he's gone through up to this time. I mean, Paul was in prison frequently, and sometimes it was really a bad one where you'd get flogged and his back is hanging ribbons, and other times it would actually be kind of a cushy type of prison where he's sitting in a living space with a soldier next to him. So not exactly sure, but it's not a scenario that he would have picked, that he would have wanted. And he's the one writing out of this, saying whatever happens, right? Whatever happens, whether it's a global pandemic, whether it's health challenges, whether it's unique challenges, whether it's online learning, whatever is going on, whatever happens, as disciples of Jesus, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. And he doesn't give much more specifics. I think that's where we've got to have it on right, where we're entering Thomas's house and we know intuitively, like, this is not the way that you behave. This is not honorable. This is not worthy of the invitation of somebody being invited to his house. It's that same sense that we need to develop, that when we enter a scenario like exams, regardless of what's going on, whatever happens or have happened, we need to figure out how to conduct ourselves in a manner that's worthy of the privilege that we've received to be at university, but also as disciples of Jesus. Okay. And often that what backs up this thought, Paul expands this in other letters. He would speak about how our example needs to win the respect of outsiders. That as disciples of Jesus, with what we've been granted with, regardless of what we go through, the way that we conduct ourselves need to be in a way where when people look at that, none of them feel as we feel walking into Thomas's house with that friend. We're like, this, I'm just not sure this is right, No, we need to conduct ourselves in a way where other people can look at that and go, wow, like their diligence, their reliability, their effort. We can't determine the results. Their effort, how they treat lecturers, whatever it might be, is really in line with the type of calling that they've received. So that's the one-liner for tonight. So here's what I want you to do, and it's going to be a risky business, but I want you to close your eyes for a moment, and we'll switch into some practical here. So I want you to stay with me. Okay, so you just close your eyes for a moment. We'll just kind of do this for a minute. And I want you to imagine that the time period where we are at is about 2 or 3 years after you've graduated. And whatever you've studied, you are done, you've completed it, and and you're actually sitting in your office. Okay, and it's kind of one of those Instagrammable offices, one of those with like you sitting on the chair, but you look over there and there's like this nice type of couch. There's sort of a library filled with academic books and other books. There's a, whatever desk would be appropriate for that, with sort of the computer on there. But it's just one of those that like you see on pictures and you're like, that really looks like a great space to work from. It's one of those offices, and what's hanging behind you is a framed degree from the university where you're at. And maybe it's an undergrad degree, maybe there's already an honors degree hanging there, maybe there's already a master's degree hanging there. And you're just having one of those moments where it's Friday afternoon, you're done with your week's work, and it's kind of one of those moments of like absolute satisfaction and contentment, where you just sit there and you just feel so filled with gratitude. Gratitude, one, because of how God has been at work in your life and that you're still a faithful disciple, but also just for the type of work that he's given you and how he's carried you through all of it. So you kind of have that moment filled with contentment, but you snap back and you decide, all right, well, let me walk out of my office, whether it's kind of an office at home and you go back into the house, or whether it's an office that you have to leave, you get in your car and you drive back home. So once you guys are ready, you can come back to me. Okay. All right. What I want you to do for just a minute here is I want you to allow your future self to give your current self some advice. So I want you to imagine a Zane or a Tando or a Zander or whoever it might be, in exactly that moment, with the degree hanging behind them, sitting at a desk, 2-3 years after graduating. And I want you to imagine that you can have a conversation with that person. Okay, that future Zander, that future Tando, that future Zane. What would they tell you about this upcoming exam? What advice would they give you about how to handle this situation that you are either in or about to go into? Does that make sense? All right, so jot down a couple of thoughts, and then we'll open it up for some feedback, and that will be it for our time. So just take some time to think about it. All right. SJ, do you have a question or, okay, we're just going to give it sort of a minute and a half. I want you to think about that, having this conversation with the future self. What would they tell you? What advice would they give you about how to go through the situation that you're facing right now? All right. Why don't we have a couple of people just kind of share what they have, like what advice would your future self give your current self about these exams and about this situation that you find yourself in? Please go for it, Abby.
This was a lot more existentially triggering than I think you intended, but I think it was good. I think so. Thank you. A couple of things I'm just going to read through them. A couple of things I wrote down is, one, don't place value in what you produce. My value is not inherently tied to my production. Start with God and end with God. This is all from God and it's going back to God. Romanticize the mundane. Sometimes just sitting in front of my computer for 3 hours is what it's going to be. So, romanticize it. You're in a movie. You're the main character.
Like it.
I think keep going and don't be afraid to ask for help. I think those are just a couple.
Awesome. Those are incredible. Yeah. SJ, thank you.
I think something, I've actually thought of this question before, but I think one thing being specific is that God is bigger. Don't prioritize your studies over spending time with him.
Awesome. Great. So sort of keep the main thing. Yeah. Great. Tuama Siriku Marnus, I'm not sure which one there.
That would be me, Jacques. I think it's funny. I couldn't come up with a lot of things. Actually, only came up with one thing, but it's very much aligned with what SJ just said. And it's put it bluntly, keeping my priorities in line. I think, sometimes I always try and prioritize my immediate selfish ambition, if I can put it like that, especially when it comes to exams and things. So it's making sure that I've got the important thing first.
Okay. All right. And what would the important thing for you be, Tom?
I think it would be spending time with God. Okay. I think it's easy to rush a quiet time or miss events and stuff because the excuse that I'd use is, no, I'm writing, or
yes.
I'm busy with something else, something that feels what I want to achieve in life, rather than something that rather than God, if I can put it like that.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, Rix, while you guys have the screen, go for it.
Cool. I think mine is also just one that sort of stood out. But I think I don't usually feel like that I struggle with like wanting to do, or not just wanting, but actually doing my best at what I'm doing, whatever it might be. So I think it would be more on the line of like don't worry about where you are now, where I am now, as in me, the older guy, saying to the younger guy, like just be present, be where you are now. Stop thinking about it'll all fall in place because I think there's so much that goes on, you know, about thinking about where we're going the whole time instead of, all right, let's just be right now. Obviously there's tons of scriptures on that, but I think it's, yeah, probably the thing that I need to work on the most.
Awesome. Yeah, Zander.
Yeah, I just want to say, Riku, that was awesome. I really like that. I think number one for me is temporary. The temporary pleasures that I entertain aren't worth it. Like with the end goal in sight. I think the older self left those things behind and just chased whatever is ahead, and kept the main thing the main thing. And then another thing that I thought of was giving anything less than 100% to God is taking what God has given me for granted. I think easily I can settle for like a 70% because at least I did the work, but I did it half-heartedly or whatever. But I think to honor God through everything that I do and to give my 100% is what God wants. He doesn't want me to just settle for good enough. God wants me to flourish. And I think the last thing is just to remember that I'm a son of God, regardless of my circumstances, regardless of the job that I might get or the thing that I'm going to do in the future, that is my identity and that is my anchor. That is it. I'm just choking on biltong. Sorry. I think just knowing that regardless of where I am and what's going on, that God still remains the same. He is still the same person, and that doesn't change him, and that shouldn't change anything about me either. I'm a son of God, and then everything else flows from there.
Come on. That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Zander. Very insightful. All right, Mike, and then we'll have one more after Mike.
I think my older self would say, firstly, calm down, and what you're going through won't define you, and it won't defeat you as well. And also that there's much more to life than what I'm currently going through. This is just a piece of a bigger pie, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Awesome. Great, man. Super, super good. All right. Anybody else have some thoughts? These are some excellent things. Or okay. Yeah, I think you know, if I'm not writing exams, but I guess this exercise is worthwhile anytime, especially in sight of the sentence that we looked at, to conduct yourself in a manner that's worthy. But I think my 2-year more mature self would definitely also be in line with what many of you guys said, is worry less. I think, yeah, I so want the future to be certain and to be clear, but I think it would say it's going to work out. It's actually going to be fine. And then the other thing that they'll probably, my older self will remind me of, is that the thing that matters to God, and I know this as a parent, is effort, not results. That do your best, like put best forward, your best efforts, give your best shot. And that doesn't mean, like, whenever we often say wholehearted or, you know, fully devoted, I don't know, like, you know, we just think extreme. But I think, like, with what's going on today, like, do my best. And you know, and I think that's what matters to God as a parent. And if I do that consistently, I can't determine the results. I don't know how it's going to go, but I've got to trust that it'll actually work out in the end. So I would say probably those two things. And they're so hard to remember. So I hope that was helpful tonight. And Abby, I'm sorry if it was more triggering in a kind of a negative way than a positive way, but it's a very simple idea. Whatever happens, and I don't want to minimize or diminish what you've gone through and this time that you're living in, not at all. And I don't think the sentence does it at all, but we have to We have to have a conviction that whatever happens, whatever you are facing, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of Christ. Amen.